My lords, today I bring a report on a space-borne Leviathan, a guardian, the strongest structure our battle fleets have ever gone up against. We've named it the Enigmatic Fortress. Dr. Croft commanded the science vessel Illustrious attached to Strike Force Charlie. They report the following. Stardate 1207.3. We have detected some kind of utterly massive space station drifting quietly at the edge of the Rancor system. Although preliminary scans show it to be very old, the structure has an intense power signature. Several smaller structures can be seen floating near the main installation and all appear to be extremely heavily armed. The true nature of this floating relic is unclear at this stage, and we will attempt to investigate further, though, given its formidable weapons array, we may have to neutralize its weapons before we can approach. Given the station's nature and its perceived age, we contacted the Galactic Curators in the hope that they would have knowledge to share, and thankfully we were right. They sent back the following information. The Enigmatic Fortress is the kind of absurd, massive, self-perpetuating construction that you simply don't see built anymore, and maybe that's for the best. The fortress has been defeated before, but it always manages to recover. Some of the ancient empires of this galaxy were driven to madness by their vain efforts to unlock its deeper secrets, or else to permanently destroy it. The fortress seems so focused on maintaining itself that we doubt it has any other serious purpose. Nevertheless, if you manage to deactivate it, you can enter it, and although this has been attempted before, that attempt is now nearly forgotten. The fortress maintains only partial power while in shutdown mode. However, it will attempt to draw power from nearby sources in order to jumpstart its systems once again. Proceed with caution. Sadly, regarding its builders, the information has been lost to time. Whoever they were, they must have been fond of puzzles and enigmas. The only items to have been recovered from the fortress are strange metal shapes, components of perplexing contraptions which seem to be designed to be rearranged into more satisfying forms. Those who brought them back did so because they failed, and they barely escaped with their lives. Many others did not. The station's power system must have been built at a time between the initial construction of the hull and the installation of its defensive systems. The system's recovery method is unknown to us, but we have discovered that the fortress contains large quantities of dark matter. That substance and its relationship to black holes, we believe, are key to understanding how the fortress has lasted so long. No one has ever found the source of its power, but it is likely to be extremely volatile indeed. Should you wish to discover the fortress's secrets, I recommend significant firepower. The fortress has been known to best wraiths, roaming ether drakes, and even a Tianki matriarch. It is extremely formidable indeed. A nice roundup of what the Curators had to say. Much more information than they normally have on topics. Nevertheless, under Admiral Bennett's command, Strike Force Charlie, supported by a large detachment from Bomber Command Zulu, closed in on the fortress. The structure's core, the vault, mounted 7 heavy kinetic batteries, but had little in the way of point defense or small weapons. Its real strength came from the perimeter. 16 smaller stations arranged in layers, 2 Guardians, 2 Wardens, 4 Defenders and 8 Sentinels. Unlike the central vault, these outlying platforms did carry point defense grids and rapid-fire autocannons. Our battle plan would reflect this. Charlie's battleships and its Titan would stand off at the edge of their effective maximum range and would attempt to burn down the perimeter station with arc emitters and the Titan's peridition beam. They had to be fast, however, as they would be moving into range of the vault's kinetic batteries. Once the outer stations had been eliminated, Zulu's frigates would be released. Small, fast, and far harder for the larger guns of the vault to track. They could slip into torpedo range, and a full spread of devastator torpedoes at that distance would gut the vault's defences in seconds. The plan was solid, and we, as observers, watched as Admiral Bennett gave the command to engage. We watched as the arc emitters spat purple crackling light across the void, each strike punching great holes in the Sentinel platforms. The Titan's peridition beam followed, a mere heartbeat later, a single blinding stroke that cored an entire platform and left it tumbling, with molten metal dripping into the void. The surviving platforms and the vault attempted to return fire immediately. Point defense clusters clawed in futility at the oncoming arc emitter laser, and the station's kinetic batteries began unleashing deadly salvos, battering the fleet's shields. At this extreme range, their fire was rather wild, mostly scattering harmlessly across Charlie's shield envelopes. One by one, the Sentinel platforms were disabled and destroyed, and as the smaller stations fell, the bombers were given the order to engage the vault. Zulu's frigates surged forward, fanning out into attack vectors too sharp for the vault's fire control to track. The vault's kinetic batteries continued to fire, seeking vengeance for their lost escorts, hurling slugs the size of dropships into the oncoming swarm, but the frigates would slip between the trajectories, the men and women of the Commonwealth continuing to prove humanity's superiority. Within moments, the frigates were in range. Drives flared, torpedo bays opened, and a storm of devastator torpedoes streaked towards the target. The first volley hammered into the vault's armor plating, blowing through the ablative layers and exposing the lattice of conduits beneath. A second volley followed before the vault could compensate, and its hull buckled and tore before it began to lose power. The lights of the station went out, and the guns ceased firing. We had disabled it, but now we would have to board it. With the defeat of the defences surrounding the structure, we hoped to find a way to explore its mysteries. Entering and traversing it would be difficult, but whoever built it must have possessed technology that we could hardly dream of. Making matters more arduous, the fortress appears to be repairing its wounded hull. Despite the ages of technology separating us and the builders of the fortress, one invention is timeless: a locked door. After having forced the fortress to shut down, we found all obvious entrances sealed, and it became apparent quite quickly that the main entrance airlock was also sealed. We would require explosives to crack it open if we wanted to see what was inside. Thus, explosives were rigged up around the airlock door. I'm told, given the unknown material, we ended up using enough shaped charge to melt a battleship's hull. In any case, the detonation set to blow the airlock went off as planned. It did, however, not penetrate the airlock. Not only that, we suffered casualties. Seconds before the explosion, a flammable gas was injected around the airlock entrance. This ignited when detonated, killing the demolition team sent to set it up. The fortress is proving dangerous indeed. My chief engineer suggested a different approach. If we were to sync up our ship's power core with the airlock, perhaps we could give it the appropriate level of energy to open. Having set this up and stabilised the ship's connection to the power system of the fortress, we had to decide how much energy to supply in the first surge. Since the technology was unfamiliar, the exact amount was difficult to determine, and we had two estimates to go off: a higher estimate or a lower estimate. Perhaps, illogically, we began with a high flow of energy. This was a mistake. The high level of energy sent into the fortress to power the door was enough to cause the reignition of a deeper energy source within. Automated turrets surrounding the airlock came back online and engaged our team. Several more lives were lost before we managed to destroy the turrets. This was not going well at all. Nevertheless, we re-engaged and this time went for the lower level of energy. At first, the amount of energy supplied seemed too small to make a difference, but then the area surrounding the airlock slowly started to show signs of functioning. With some mechanical tricks and guesswork, myself and the team were able to access the controls and open the door. Not the cleanest docking procedure, but at least we are now inside the fortress. 7 of us would enter, and then the airlock would shut behind us. It appeared that we were trapped in here, and unless we can figure out its secrets, I suspect we're in trouble. We push on. We soon found our way blocked by a massive bulkhead. There is a recessed alcove to our right, housing a pedestal and a contraption wrought in the same black metal as the fortress itself. I believe this device is key to opening the bulkhead. I can only describe it as 3 upright poles spaced equidistantly across the top of the pedestal, with 3 rings, metal tori, of varying sizes placed around the leftmost pole, the smallest at the top and the largest at the bottom. Between the 7 of us, we discussed 4 options. We could place the metal rings around the 2 remaining poles. We could search for torus-shaped indentations on the bulkhead. We could attempt to rearrange the metal tori on the poles, or we could remove the centre and rightmost poles from the pedestal. Dr. Frank Jones, my chief science officer, argued strongly for option A. This was a logic puzzle, and he believed option A was the clear choice. Therefore he volunteered to attempt it, and thus we stepped back out of the room to await the outcome. After Frank placed the rings around the 2 empty poles, there was a moment of silence, followed by a faint shuffling, and then a drawn-out, sharp sound, increasing in pitch over 5 seconds. Then another long silence. It took us several minutes to accept that this was the end of Frank. There was no screaming or calls for aid, so we can at least hope he met a quick end. After approximately 15 minutes, the door reopened. A slow, heavy rasp suggested whatever trap had sprung was reset. I could swear I heard alien laughter, but no one else could confirm it. I hope the end of this place is more than the hellish contraptions we've witnessed so far. Given the situation, I volunteered to try the puzzle again, but this time I chose option C. I chose to rearrange the metal tori on the poles, and within moments of finishing, we heard a splashing sound. So loud, at first I thought I was about to be swatted like a small insect. This, however, quickly followed by a cheer from myself and the team as the passage in front of us began to open. However, the bulkhead appeared to have rapidly transformed into an unpleasant smelling liquid, reminiscent of purple quicksilver. Combined with the relatively mundane puzzle, I'm left with the feeling that we are victims of an elaborate prank set up millennia ago, and if we weren't down to 6 team members, one may chuckle. Nevertheless, we continued on, but within minutes we reached the next obstacle. We think that we were now at the geometric centre of the fortress, even if the internal geometry leaves some doubt to the concept of a centre. We think we are here. What is indisputably relevant, however, is how the fortress is powered, which made our next discovery all the more interesting. We realised that dark matter was funneled around the fortress and then back to the core, a little bit like a human cardiovascular system. Although the flow had stopped, my team and I believed that it was slowly being restarted. We can take all the time we want to study it, but we need to keep it stopped for now. This problem required 2 separate approaches. Using the knowledge that we had acquired here, we discovered that its builders must have learned many of the manipulation and funneling techniques that black holes use to manipulate dark matter, and this gave us some clues into how its power source had been designed. Furthermore, my ship and crew had been observing the fortress's local star, and they discovered a surprising secret. Around the system's star there was a fine mist of nanobot cameras. It appears that they are acting as the eyes of the fortress and explain the efficiency of its defensive systems. Accessing these cameras with data from the fortress, we are able to view the history of the system all the way back to its construction. 3 entries are available to us: the beginning, the middle and the end. Hoping to see the heart of the fortress built first, we reviewed the beginning of the construction. We had hoped in vain. The hull, it would seem, was built first, making the data useless, so we moved on to the middle. The middle section of the footage, although not showing the construction of the core itself, reveals the shipping of materials to the fortress, which my team and I conclude must have been used for the core. This must have been the critical time at which the structure needed power for construction to continue. The end of the recording showed us little other than a powered and fully capable fortress. Using what we had learnt from the middle section, and with knowledge of these materials, we believed that we could stop it from repowering, and with luck, we can reap the fruits of our success. Although it took us a full day, we were successful. Whoever built the fortress may have been more knowledgeable than us, but they were not more clever. Supplying our own dark matter to close the loop of the power system has worked, and the core is now effectively cut off from providing power to its external systems. Finally, we can take the time to have a closer look at what these knowledgeable people managed to accomplish. We managed to acquire from the vault several decades worth of research in the form of data, trinkets and various specimens, but 2 technologies have also been unlocked, both rather fascinating. The first is the Enigmatic Decoder. While reducing average results in standalone tests, the accuracy of the Enigmatic Decoder's prediction algorithms seemingly increases as the target's flight path begins to grow more erratic. The decoder that we've discovered is essentially an add-on to Starship computers that greatly increases the computer's ability to track and hit a moving target. It's very valuable on larger ships using poor hit chance weapons, such as kinetic batteries. The second discovery is the opposite. It's called the encoder, and rather than increasing hit chance, it increases the likelihood that a ship will be able to disengage from combat. We believe by using the same computational methods, just reversed. Most bizarrely, these technologies appear to have angered the fallen empires, who have sent us a rather threatening message. Clearly, they feel these technologies are on a level that could threaten their perceived power in our galaxy.